Good evening and welcome. You've found your place under the baobab tonight. The sky is a blanket of stars above. The fire burns gently beside us, and the dust of history settles quietly in the air. This is under baobab skies, where we journey into Africa's past, not with rush or drama, but with calm curiosity, letting stories unfold like ancient scrolls, one soft whisper at a time. Tonight, we invite you to rest your thoughts and drift gently into the sands of time to a place once called the Pearl of the Desert, a city of heat, hardship, and high philosophy, a city where words weighed more than gold. Timbuktu. Close your eyes if you wish. Let your breathing slow, and imagine yourself in the dust and light of an ancient city where daily life could wear even the strongest soul thin, but where the mind could soar higher than the dunes. Imagine, for a moment, the first breath of morning in the heart of the Sahel, but upon a tightly woven mat, perhaps laid across a platform of stone or timber. The walls around you are built of sun-baked mud brick, their surface cool to the touch in the early light. Outside, the wind sighs through alleyways, carrying with it fine grains of sand and the faint scent of dust-warmed earth. This is Timbuktu, sometime around the 14th or 15th century, a city perched where the desert stretches wide and merciless, and yet, somehow, blooms with life, with books, with ideas. The call to prayer floats over the city before the sun is fully risen, a melodic thread weaving through the quiet. Already, the rhythm of the day begins. Slow but purposeful, like a steady drumbeat far off in the dunes. You'll rise. The heat creeps in early, soft at first, a warming of the ground beneath your feet, a glow along the walls, but it builds. By mid-morning, the sun is a weight on your shoulders, an invisible pressure that forces you into shade. The sand, bleached white, reflects the heat back into the air until it hums. Your robes cling to your skin, damp with sweat, and still the wind blows, sometimes gently, sometimes with a harshness that stings your eyes and mouth with grains of sand. And yet, life moves on. Children run through the alleyways, giggling as they dodge adults, carrying baskets or scrolls. Donkeys bray hooves, clopping along the well-worn paths. Merchants begin to lay out their wares. Bundles of salt wrapped in cloth, dried fish from the river Niger, and books, always books. This is a city where knowledge holds more value than gold. Scholars are the most respected members of society. Manuscripts, copied by hand, bound in leather, inked with care, are traded as precious commodities. To be literate here is to be powerful, but that power is hard-earned. Now, imagine you are a student. You've traveled from hundreds of kilometers away, perhaps from a small village near modern-day Mauritania, or deeper south, beyond the bend of the Niger. You've come for the scholars, the learning, the prestige, but it is not a university as you might know it. No campus, no lecture halls with tidy desks. Instead, you study in courtyards, under awnings, sitting in the sand or on low stools. The sun bears down on the parchments you read. The ink on your pages must be protected, your focus unwavering. You study the Quran, of course, but also law, mathematics, astronomy, and poetry. Everything. In Arabic, lessons are oral. The rhythm of memorization is your soundtrack. Teachers recite, you repeat, again and again, until your voice is hoarse and the meaning carves itself deep into your mind. You are expected to show humility. You bow your head, keep your gaze soft. You may not question your teacher directly. You listen, you absorb, and you recite. Your days are shaped by the cadence of this learning, broken only by prayer, simple meals, and the gathering of water or firewood. And the evenings, they bring little relief. The desert does not cool quickly. At dusk, the sand retains the day's heat, and the air is thick. You huddle near your lantern, fueled by animal fat or oil, squinting at your manuscript. Your writing must be neat. There is no backspace, no delete key. Mistakes are costly. Paper is rare. Ink is handmade. Your fingers are stained with it. Mosquitoes buzz, persistent. The wind whispers again, sifting sand through any crack it finds. You are tired, but your studies continue. It is expected, because to fall behind is to lose honor. To excel is to rise, and perhaps one day to teach. Outside of scholarship, daily life in Timbuktu still requires much effort. Food is simple. Millet porridge, sometimes with goat's milk, dried dates, if you're lucky, stewed beans, spiced lightly. If spices are available, meat is rare. Fresh fruit, rarer still. Trade caravans arrive from the north, their camels bearing goods from Morocco, Algeria, even as far as Egypt. They bring salt, cloth, glass, beads, and yes, books. They also bring news of the world beyond the dunes, stories of empires and revolts, of distant kings and falling cities. But those stories must wait, shared around fires or whispered during rest. Still, as the stars rise above the city, life quiets, the heat slowly releases its grip. The sand cools, and a strange peace settles over Timbuktu. It is not a peace of leisure or ease, but one of rhythm, of purpose. Here, every task requires thought. Every comfort is earned. You see, it is not just the climate that makes Timbuktu a difficult place for outsiders. It is the discipline, the routine, the weight of tradition, the reverence for learning that demands you place your ego far beneath your education. No screens, no instant messages, no escape from the demands of the body or the mind. And yet, for those who lived here, there was beauty, there was order, there was pride. The rhythm of their lives pulsed in time with the desert. Hard, slow, enduring, and in that rhythm, they found something timeless. Something that, even today, whispers through the dunes. The story of a place where books were more valuable than gold, and every day, every single one, asks something more from you. Let us now turn our attention to one of the men who best embodied this world. A scholar whose brilliance shone even as the empire around him trembled. Up next, the life of Ahmad Baba, Africa's forgotten genius. And so, as the sun sets over the dusty courtyards of Timbuktu, let us now turn our gaze to one man, a man whose name is spoken with quiet reverence by those who know, a man who stood against the tide of ignorance, and who, despite exile and captivity, never let his light dim. His name was Ahmed Baba Timbuktu, not just a scholar, not just a teacher, but a living library walking among men. Let's begin with the world he was born into, a birth in the Sahel, imagine, if you will, a soft morning in 16th century Timbuktu. The wind is still cool from the night. A donkey cart creaks past, its wooden wheels brushing the sand. In the narrow alleyways of the district, the muezzin's call to prayer floats through the air, gentle, steady, timeless, and in a modest scholar's home, a child is born. He would grow to be Ahmad Baba, son of Ahmad ben Al, heads Ahmad ben Omar, from the Akit family, a line respected for its deep knowledge of Islamic law. Even as a boy, Ahmad Baba was different. While others played in the sand or chased goats through the lanes, young Ahmed would be found crouched in the shadows of the mosque, eyes fixed on scrolls larger than his hands. He memorized the Quran before most could recite a page. He began debating legal theory before his voice had deepened. By his early teens, he was already being called Faqih. Some say it was his father's influence, others the sheer pull of the libraries, rooms heavy with parchment and promise. Or perhaps it was simply the spirit of Timbuktu itself, a place where even the air seemed thick with thought. This was not a city of luxury, but it was rich in something greater. Scholarship. Even the market sellers quoted scripture. Even the herders could debate grammar. As Ahmad Baba grew, so too did his reputation. And the scholar's life by his 20s, Ahmad Baba had become a fixture. That ancient university, founded centuries before, was no mere building. It was a living organism, always whispering, always teaching, within its cool earthen walls, under high domes of pale stone. He taught classes on law, logic, grammar, and theology. Students would gather around him, not in rows, but in circles. There were no desks, just mats, sandals at the door, scrolls in hand, minds alert. He was not a man of loud lectures. He preferred questions, and he welcomed disagreement, so long as it was respectful and rooted in evidence. He once said, "Knowledge that is not challenged grows stale." It is said he once debated for 3 days straight, pausing only for prayer and a handful of dates. His classes were open to men and, in some cases, women. An unusual move in some corners of the Islamic world at the time, but not for Timbuktu. This city was different. It believed in access. He wrote constantly. Books on jurisprudence, commentaries on older texts, glossaries, even biographies of previous scholars. Over 40 works, in Arabic, many still survive today. One of his most influential works was his biographical dictionary of Maliki scholars, a kind of West African hua of legal thought. Yet Ahmad Baba was more than a legalist. He was a humanist. He believed in justice. He believed that knowledge should serve the people, not just the powerful. But even with all this brilliance, trouble was brewing just beyond the horizon. Moroccan invasion and exile to The year was 1591. The Moroccan Sultan, Ahmad al-Mansur, hungry for gold and power, sent an army across the desert. They swept into Timbuktu, muskets in hand, a technology unfamiliar to most locals. The Songhai Empire weakened and fragmented fell, and with it came the targeting of Timbuktu's intellectuals. Why? Because knowledge is power, and powerful minds are often feared. Ahmed Baba was arrested, not for violence, not for theft, but for his words. The Moroccans accused him of sedition, of influencing minds against the occupiers, and so, shackled and silenced, he was forced to walk, not ride, across the Sahara, all the way to Marrakesh. He called it the worst moment of his life, but exile did not break him. Imprisonment and defiance in Morocco. In Marrakesh, Ahmed Baba was not welcomed as a scholar. He was thrown into prison, a small, airless cell. And yet, even there, he wrote, even there, he taught. The Moroccan scholars, many of them unaware of the soul's intellectual weight, were stunned. How, they asked, could a man from south of the desert know this much? Ahmed Baba responded not with anger, but with pages. He wrote in defense of the Negro, an early treatise dismantling racist stereotypes and proving, through evidence, the intellectual might of West Africans. He argued for human dignity. In an age when many denied it, eventually his fame grew so large that the Moroccan Sultan had no choice but to release him. But Ahmed Baba was changed. He had seen ignorance in the courts of kings. He had seen how power could crush parchment. But he also saw that words, well placed and deeply rooted, could survive chains. Returned to a different Timbuktu. He returned to his homeland in 1608. But the Timbuktu of his youth, the city of books, of debates, of calm, was no longer the same. Many scholars had fled. The libraries were looted. The silence in the madrasis was louder than any noise. Still, he resumed teaching. He took young students under his wing. He copied manuscripts by hand to preserve what was lost, and he wrote until his hands ached. Ahmed Baba died around 1607, not with riches, not with power, but with legacy. Today, in Timbuktu, there is a library named in his honor, the Ahmed Baba Institute of Higher Learning and Islamic Research. Its shelves, though threatened by time and fire, carry his memory in ink and parchment. A few of his original manuscripts, dusty, fragile, precious, still bear his signature. And so, in some quiet room, beneath a flickering bulb or an oil lamp, his words still whisper across time, a gentle reflection. So now, let us sit quietly for a moment, under the soft glow of our imagined fire beneath the Baal. Think of this man, born in dust, shaped by books, silenced by empire, but never broken. Ahmed Baba is a name that reminds us of what knowledge truly means. Not loudness, not applause, but quiet, enduring light, even in the darkest of centuries. A candle in the storm, a book in the sand, a mind that still breathes through paper. The lost libraries of Timbuktu, where books were wealthier than gold. An immersive storytelling journey into Africa's forgotten knowledge vaults. Let the fire crackle a bit louder now. The sun has dropped low behind the dunes, and the sands of the Sahara whisper ancient truths across time. We've walked the alleyways of Timbuktu. We've ducked into shaded courtyards, dodged sand devils, and heard the call of prayer echo between adobe walls. But now we step into shadow, into history's silence. Not the silence of loss, but the silence of secrets, hidden in books. Books beneath the sand. In the Western imagination, Timbuktu was always treated like a myth, a place so distant it may as well have been on the moon. But for centuries, Timbuktu was the beating heart of African knowledge. A city whose greatest treasures were not pyramids or palaces, but pages, ink on parchment, wisdom on fragile skins, books buried beneath sand, not by time, but by love. These weren't just religious texts. Contracts, court rulings, letters between lovers, scientific theories, translations of Plato, medical manuals, treatises on astronomy, calendars written in lunar cycles, and philosophical debates about law and the soul. Some pages were written in a flawless Maghrebi script, curved like desert dunes. Others scribbled in Ajami, African languages written in Arabic letters. And while Europe stumbled through the Dark Ages, Africa had scholars who debated Aristotle under lantern light. Libraries in the living room now pause. Forget the image of a grand European library with spiral staircases and marble floors. In Timbuktu, the library lived in the home. Picture a mud-walled house, unpainted, simple, just a single door. Inside, there is a father, a grandfather, a teacher, and 3 boys copying manuscripts by hand. There is no printing press, no ink factory. The ink is brewed from desert gum and acacia sap. The paper, imported from Italy or made locally from tree bark. The quill, fashioned from a reed snapped by the river. Each line is sacred, each word is a prayer, and each mistake a moment of meditation. Books were copied with such devotion that a single manuscript might take months to produce. They were stored not on shelves, but in wooden trunks, under mats, in jars buried in cool soil. Knowledge wasn't public property, it was a family legacy. The first line of defense. Memory. When colonial forces arrived, first Moroccan, then French, they didn't always understand what they saw. Some thought the manuscripts were religious relics. Others saw them as mere scribbles. They didn't realize they were staring at the intellectual proof of a literate Africa. So the locals did what they'd always done in moments of danger. They remembered. When manuscripts had to be hidden, families would memorize entire volumes. In some villages, young boys would be raised with only one task: to memorize the family's books in case the pages were ever burned. One man might carry 400 pages in his head, a living library, a walking archive. They didn't trust the empire, they didn't trust the museum. They trusted oral resilience. For the day the fire came. Fast forward to the 21st century. It is 2012. Northern Mali falls under the control of Islamist militants. Timbuktu, once a jewel of peaceful scholarship, becomes a war zone. The ancient mud mosques are bombed. Sacred tombs are bulldozed. Women are veiled at gunpoint. And in the libraries, the fear is thick. The militants denounce the manuscripts as idolatry. They threaten to burn them, to wipe out centuries of African thought. But Timbuktu's people are ready. They don't weep. They don't panic. They act. Led by quiet heroes like Dr. Abdelkader Haidar, the librarians of Timbuktu begin one of the greatest cultural rescue missions of modern history. Over 377,000 manuscripts are smuggled out. The camel caravan of knowledge. This isn't a Hollywood heist. There's no tech, no security cameras, just grit. Old men wrap manuscripts in bedsheets. Teenagers pack them into rice sacks. Some are sealed in tin boxes. Others stuffed into mango crates. They are loaded onto donkeys, boats, and cars. Over months, and with immense danger, the manuscripts are carried across deserts, down the Niger River, into Bamako. No weapons, no uniforms. Just villagers, drivers, fishermen, smugglers, carrying the soul of Africa on their backs. And when the militants finally storm the libraries, they find only dust and silence. The pages are gone, hidden, safe. What lies inside the manuscripts? Let us turn one of those pages together. One manuscript debates the ethics of wealth. If gold corrupts a man, what use is its shine beneath his feet? Another lists over 700 medicinal plants native to West Africa, with instructions for mixing herbal salves for childbirth. One poem reads, "The stars are not gods, but they dance to his will. Let man be as humble as the moon before the sun." Others include legal records from court cases dating back to the 1500s, astronomical calculations of lunar eclipses accurate to within minutes, commentaries on Islamic law, arguing for tolerance, justice, and balance. Some were penned by students, others by scholars whose names are now lost to time, and a few are unsigned. their creators content to be servants of knowledge, not owners of it. Modern restoration and digital rebirth. Today, in Mali, Ghana, and South Africa, teams of archivists and historians are restoring the manuscripts page by page. Each fragile document is handled with gloves, cleaned with soft camel hair brushes, scanned with special cameras. The goal is simple but monumental: to digitize Africa's soul. Libraries across the world, from Cape Town to Chicago, are now housing replicas and translations. The world is finally paying attention. But the original manuscripts, they still rest in homes, in vaults, in crates, guarded by descendants of the original scribes, and many still haven't been read. Some say we've only touched 5% of Timbuktu's manuscript knowledge, Timbuktu's true legacy, and so we ask, is the real treasure of Africa gold, or is it the unseen wisdom passed down through ink-stained fingers and whispered teachings? Timbuktu was never lost. We simply forgot to look. We forgot to listen. Now, as the flames of our fire begin to slow, let us carry these pages in our hearts. Let us remember the librarians who smuggled knowledge across dunes, the mothers who taught their children how to pronounce a sacred word, and the cities, yes, cities, where African thought once illuminated the night. Timbuktu is not a myth, it's a manuscript, still waiting to be read. Gold, scholars and sultans, what the elite of the Mali Empire enjoyed, where intellect sat beside opulence, and gold bowed to knowledge. A 30-minute calm immersion into the elite culture of the medieval Mali Empire. The fire's glow is low now. The night is quiet, and yet, just beneath the hush, you can almost hear it. The soft jingle of gold coins, the rustle of fine silk robes, and the echo of verses recited in the candlelight of royal halls. We leave behind the dusty alleyways of Timbuktu, and now we enter a different world. A quieter, more opulent world. The world of the elite, where gold was not rare, but commonplace, and wisdom, not war, determined a man's true rank. A land bathed in gold. The Mali Empire stretching across what is now Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, Niger, and Mauritania, was one of the richest civilizations the world has ever known. Not metaphorically rich, literally. Mines from the Bambouk and Bure regions produced nearly half of the world's gold at one point in the 14th century. Caravans of camels, sometimes 100 long, carried the metal across the Sahel in blocks. Coins, powder, and jewelry. To the elite of Mali, gold was not merely decoration. It was currency, tribute, status, and art. But it's important to pause here and breathe in the detail, because this wasn't greed. The elite of Mali didn't hoard gold as dragons do in fables. They adorned their courts with it. They gifted it. They funded mosques, universities, libraries, and hospitals with it. Wealth, for them, was not an end. It was a means to support thought, to feed scholarship, to honor the divine. Imagine a royal courtyard. Its walls are high, smooth mud brick, painted in ochre and clay hues. Shaded walkways of timber beams line its edge. A fountain burbles softly at the center, its water clear, drawn from an underground system built by Berber engineers. And in this courtyard, the emperor does not host gladiators. He hosts debate. Scholars from Egypt, Morocco, even Al-Andalus are invited. They sit on leather mats, sipping sweet tea, discussing philosophy, jurisprudence, astronomy, and poetry. To impress the Mansa, the Emperor One did not need a sword. One needed a sharp mind and a reverent heart. Mansa Musa, gold that shook the world. At the center of this golden age, stood a man whose name has become synonymous with wealth. He ruled from 1312 to 1337. And to this day, he is considered by economists and historians alike to be the richest human being in recorded history. But more remarkable than his wealth was how he used it. In 1324, Musa embarked on a pilgrimage to Mecca, the famous Hajj, with over 60,000 attendants, 80 camels, each carrying over 130 kilograms of gold, tailors, musicians, soldiers, scribes, scholars, and slaves. Gold dust given freely to the poor in every city they passed. So freely, in fact, that it caused inflation in Cairo and parts of the Middle East that lasted over a decade. But Musa wasn't merely showing off. He brought back books. He brought back architects. He brought back ideas. And upon his return, he funded the construction of mosques, universities, and libraries, including the Jingaba Mosque in Timbuktu. He understood true wealth is measured in legacy, not luxury. Elite education, a scholar's childhood. To be born into an elite family in Mali was not to inherit riches alone, but responsibility. Boys were taught the Quran from a young age, often memorizing it entirely before their teen years. Then came logic, grammar, rhetoric, geometry, and law. By adulthood, many elite sons were trained judges or administrators, fluent in Arabic and local languages alike. Girls, too, were educated, particularly in literature, herbal medicine, and household management. In some families, women held administrative power, led businesses, or served as advisors. The elite understood that power without learning was dangerous, so knowledge wasn't merely prized, it was expected. Life of luxuries, but with restraint. Let us now peek into the dining hall of a noble household. Low tables are set with ceramic plates. There is rice steamed with dates, roasted lamb, tamarind stew, millet cakes soaked in honey, fragrant incense burns in clay pots, a mix of frankincense, myrrh, and desert rosewood. But it's not just the food, it's the manners. Guests must eat with the right hand. No one speaks before the elder. Recitations from poets are offered between courses, sometimes humorous, sometimes spiritual. Clothes are dyed in indigo and embroidered with gold thread. Men wear tunics and turbans. Women wrap themselves in elaborate veils and jewelry crafted from Saharan silver and coral from North Africa. Even in wealth, dignity and modesty were observed. One's conduct was the true indicator of nobility. The scholar-king dynamic. One of the most fascinating aspects of elite life in the Mali Empire was the mutual respect between kings and scholars. In other empires, kings silenced thinkers. But in Mali, kings consulted them. The emperor was powerful, but if a scholar issued a fatwa or public advice, it was considered divine wisdom. This created a delicate but effective balance. The ruler governed land, the scholar governed conscience. It ensured that greed, tyranny, and arrogance could be checked by ink and prayer. This is perhaps one reason why the Mali Empire was so stable, even at its peak. Cultural exchange and cosmopolitan life. Finally, imagine the scene. A caravan arrives in the capital. The traders speak Hausa, Arabic, Berber, and Songhai. They carry salt, silk, spices, and scrolls. They bow before the palace gates, not in fear, but in respect. Inside, courtiers translate contracts, scribes take notes, and elders mediate disputes using texts that are hundreds of years old. This was no closed kingdom. This was a cosmopolitan empire. It accepted Jews, Christians, Muslims, pagans, so long as peace was kept and wisdom was honored. And though gold glinted in every corner, The true sparkle of the Mali elite was always found in their minds, the final reflection. Now, as the embers fade and the night deepens, consider this. Timbuktu, Mali, and its golden rulers are not just stories from long ago. They are reminders that Africa was not always struggling, that wealth and wisdom once danced hand in hand beneath our skies, and that buried beneath centuries of silence are the blueprints of greatness, waiting not to be reinvented, but remembered. Let your mind drift with the desert winds now, and know this. The gold of Mali has long faded, but its ideas still shine. The fire fades, the stars remain good evening. Again, dear you've been walking with us for quite some time now, across hot winds and ancient pathways, and as we come to the quiet end of our journey, let us settle back beneath the soft arms of the old baobab tree, its bark smooth with age, its branches stretched like time-worn arms holding the sky. The fire beside us has dimmed to glowing embers, flickering gently against the hush of night. There's a stillness now, not the silence of nothingness, but a restful pause, like a held breath in history's long conversation. Let us linger here a while, and gently reflect on where we've been. We began our journey in the heart of ancient Timbuktu, not through its glory, but through its grit. You felt the weight of the day pressing down, the Sahel sun relentless and the air dry as flour. We walked together across sand-swept courtyards, where water was life, and every step left a story in the dust. In those narrow streets and simple homes, we met the rhythm of ordinary lives rising before dawn, praying, studying, fetching water, learning in the hush of packed material. It wasn't ease that shaped Timbuktu's people. It was not the kind that boasts, but the kind that simply keeps going, the kind that teaches, the kind that remembers. And then, when we sat quietly in the presence of Ahmed Baba, the heartbeat of Timbuktu, we were reminded that not all resistance is loud. Sometimes it comes in the form of a man who picks up a pen instead of a sword. He loved the written word, not because it was elegant, but because it was liberating. He believed that to write was to fight, and even when his body was chained and his books stolen, he left behind a legacy far stronger than steel. Ahmed Baba showed us that Africa was never without scholars, never without thinkers, and never without those willing to stand tall in the face of ignorance. Then, under dim candlelight, we traced our fingers through the lost libraries of Timbuktu. They weren't just rooms of paper, they were archives of memory, scrolls whispering secrets across centuries. Imagine the sound of parchment crackling as it is unwrapped for the first time in decades, the hush of reverence, the dusty scent of wisdom. These libraries were not forgotten. They were hidden, protected, buried in walls, tucked under beds, smuggled across burning dunes in donkey carts, because the people of Timbuktu knew something we sometimes forget. That true knowledge is sacred, and like water in a desert, it must be guarded, preserved, even at great cost. And then we were allowed a glimpse into the world of those who lived above the struggle. The elite, the sultans, the scholars cloaked in fine fabrics and gold-threaded sandals. Yet what made them elite was not merely their wealth but their devotion to thought. Imagine salons where philosophers debated long into the night, while the scent of sweet incense curled through the air, where traders brought news of distant lands, and children were raised among books instead of blades. In their world, intellect was currency, language was power, and to know more was to rise higher. And now, dear listener, we return to this moment beneath the African stars. Time stretches out like the horizon of the Sahara. You are safe here, you are warm, and still. The fire is low, but its glow lingers softly on your face. The night hums with a distant echo of drums, of wind over dune, of pages turning in some quiet room far, far away. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts drift gently now, like a caravan disappearing behind the last dune. You have walked far tonight and learned much. But there is no test, no exam, only rest. Let the rhythm of history lull you. Let the voices of the past hum you to sleep. They are not gone. They are simply quieter now. And if you listen closely, in the hush between your breaths, you may still hear them whispering from the pages of time. Good night, sleep well. And when next we gather under baobab skies, another story will be waiting for you.